Okay, we're going to start, and I'm going to share the screen with you. Okay, last time we finished most of what we wanted to say about Yosef, but not everything, because we didn't come to the part where Yosef's real genius appears out of his... Sorry, I'm going to close the window because there's a lot of noise from the outside. Okay. Yosef's... We said that the third part of conscious determination is mind. That the person has all kinds of chidushim, all kinds of novel insight into what they're doing. Where was Yosef's? Where did his innovations come from? So we mentioned last time that he had these insights into how to interpret dreams. But a lot of the insight is also very practical. It's not just about something theoretical like a dream. It's also about things that are, you could say, engineering projects or real down-to-earth problems that the person has to deal with. And what did Yosef do when it came to solving the problems that Egypt and the rest of the world had during that famine? And when you think about it, this is exactly what we need now. We have this pandemic, and when you think of a figure who would have the ability to guide us through something like this, so that's exactly what we would be looking for. We'd be looking for somebody who could find the way to make sure that we balance properly the needs of protecting people from the virus, and on the other hand, ensuring that as much of the economy, as much of normal life can continue to go on. And you see that striking this balance is very difficult. And nobody's really had a lot of success with it. In America, they just, you've got a president who says, well, I don't care about the balance. I don't care about the virus at all. The only thing that interests me really is the economy. In Russia, you have something like that. Or some guy who's spreading false hope with some immune boost that either works or doesn't work. And you see, like in a place like Israel, there's a complete meltdown. It's actually not very surprising, because if the pandemic has any good side to it, it might be that the Jews living in Eretz Yisrael would realize that without somebody who really has what you would call divine inspiration about how to lead this, you really can't fix the situation. So what I'm hoping is that, I don't hope that things get worse. I hope that they don't get worse. But sometimes they don't need to get worse. It's just that people are going through difficult times for long enough that they become ripe for change, that they become ripe for for a different type of leadership that's not political in nature, but is rather maybe religious in nature. So that's what happened in Egypt. And Yosef's biggest problem, the biggest problem that he had, wasn't collecting the food. It wasn't creating enough food, because it was told to him that there would be 7 years of plenty. The problem that he really needed to solve was, how do you ensure that the food that you gather remains healthy for 7 years of famine? How do you ensure that it doesn't spoil? And that was really the problem that he had. So Yosef, it's not clear what did he do? How did he solve this problem? How did he figure out what to do in order to ensure that the food not spoil? And that's really where his mind had to offer him a solution that didn't exist. It wasn't something he could just rely on. So I don't have a definite answer. I don't have a definite answer about this, but I have a direction. And the direction has to do with something that's told to us at the very end of Vayigash. And it says there that there was the people ran out of money. They had no more money left. And they were only into the second year, I think, of the famine. And Yosef came up with a brilliant idea, apparently. And what his idea was that you have to take the land and entrust it in the hands of Yosef himself. And not only that, but you also have to do something more, which is you have to tithe, which really in their case was to, I don't know how you say it, but to give a fifth of what you're producing as a tax. And the tax was apparently what ensured that the food didn't spoil. That what he was giving them, what they were buying, wouldn't spoil. And not only that, but even though there was a famine, what they had, what they were able to grow, was enough. So if you turn to chapter 47, and this is in it starts from verse 20. It says, "Vayiken Yosef et kol admat Mitzrayim." Yosef bought all of the land of Egypt. "Ki machu Mitzrayim isadeu ki chazak aleim harav v'tehiyeh haaretz leparo." So, first of all, they have this problem that they have no money left to buy whatever was stored in the storehouses, whatever was still edible. And apparently not very much was still edible. And they sell their land to Pharaoh in order to have money to buy the produce that's been stored. But that's not enough. Because Vayomer Yosef el ha'am, hen kaniti etchem hayom ve'et admatchem leFaro. Yosef says, I bought you and your land to Pharaoh today. Hey lachem zera, here is grain. And zera here means either it's grain for eating, for milling and making into food, or this is grain for planting. And he says specifically, Uzratem et ha'adama, and you shall use this as seeds. But we thought that these were years of famine. So what's Yosef's big chidush? The Chazal say this word hey lachem zera. This is for you seed. Hey. It's hey aleph. That's how it's written. And he explains, what does this word mean? It literally means to give. I'm giving you. Here you go. But he says what he means. He says, V'haya batevuot, unetatem chamishit lefaro, ve'arba yadot yeh lachem lezera hasadeh, uleochlechem, ve'lasher bevatechem, ve'le'echol et apchem. So he says that everything that you grow, 1/5 you'll bring back to me, and the 4/5 will be for you and your families. There was nothing like this before. There was apparently nothing of the sort that somebody said, bring me 1/5 of what you grow. How was taxation done before? Taxation was absolute. It was absolute. Because the thinking was that if I, says Pharaoh, let's say, the emperor, the king, whoever it is, says, I need such and such an amount of grain every week, so I need to collect that amount for my people. It doesn't matter how much they grew. If they grow enough for themselves and for me, very nice. If they don't have enough, I come first. But they have to give me an absolute amount. It's never relative. But Yosef invents something new, which is relative taxation. And he says, why? Why do I need it to be relative? Because I want that the 4/5, what's left, will be for you to eat. And it will be enough for those in your household to eat and for your children. Yosef's thinking is very different. He says what looks like taxation is really to ensure that you have enough. Meaning when you give from the top a certain amount, but only relative to what you've grown, that ensures that the rest is enough. That the rest will be enough for you and your family. This is the idea of a meiser. It's an idea they learned from Yaakov. And he took it a little bit further because he said, what's the thinking? The thinking is, in time of need, you would think that you should give less off the top. So if Yaakov was giving 1/10, I think Yosef would say, give me only 1/20. So that there's more for you to live off of. But actually Yosef does the opposite. He says, because these are difficult times, give more. Increase. And again, in the Egyptian mind, this is called taxation. In Yosef's mind, this is called a meiser. But a 5th, a meiser that's bigger than the 10th. It's an entire 5th, twice as much. But this ensures that whatever's left is blessed. And it will be enough for you and your families. That's a tremendous chap. We look at meiser as a tax. Yosef looked at it as a way of ensuring that you're sustainable. As a way of ensuring that you would be blessed enough, no matter how little you had, it would be enough to carry you through. So he's not afraid to increase from 10% to 20%. because he says we need extra help in blessing this food. What did he do with the 20% that he received? Well, he gave whatever he had to give to Pharaoh. I don't know how much it was. And the rest he distributed between the people who were starving, who didn't have land, and who weren't able to grow anything. This is an incredible idea, and it repeats everywhere. That in order to make sure that the majority of your possessions are used properly and have a blessing in them, and that they're used for the right things, and that they prove to be enough for you, you have to give from the top, from the very beginning, from the moment that you have any kind of revenue. You give right away the 10th that you owe, or the 20th, and you give it to tzedakah. It's simply a revolutionary idea. Again, Yaakov did it because he wanted to be blessed. Yosef is doing it to sustain what there is, so that what there is becomes enough and is not spoiled by difficult circumstances. It's really a mind-blowing idea. And that's how we give, this is exactly how we give what we call gifts, matanot, or truma. The first truma that you give is from the first fruit. It's called bikurim. In the same way that Yosef was a bechor. And indeed, after he tells them, you'll give a fifth back to me and 4/5 will be for you, they say, Vayomru hecheyitanu. They told Yosef, they came back, I guess, and they told him, you've kept us alive. You've given us life. We didn't know this. We didn't know. Cain and Hevel knew this. But Cain gave not from the beginning, not from the best. He just gave from the bottom line. But Hevel, he gave from Bechorot Sono Mechel Behen, from the Bechor, from the firstborn. And that's why Hashem accepted his gift. And he blessed him with more. So this idea is very clearly, I think, it's very clearly one of the big successes of Yosef's newfound mind capabilities. His ability now to sustain in a time of complete famine for, well, it was only for 2 years, because then Yaakov came down. And by the way, even asking Yaakov to come down could be at some level attributed to Yosef's understanding that if such a tzaddik comes down, it might be the end of the famine. Maybe he doesn't know for sure, but it's worth a try. And when Yaakov comes down, indeed the famine ends after 2 years. Okay. Now, interestingly, this ties us in very nicely into the next stage, which is opening the eyes. But we need to read a little bit more before. We said that the concealed mind, the concealed wisdom, shoots like arrows into the mind that gives us insight into solving problems. The last line here is, once the mind with all its facets necessitates the vision of faith and its immediate fulfillment, then it is time to open one's closed eyes, bringing about the final stage of this process of choice and confidence. So this requires us now to delve a little bit into what this opening the eyes really means. And that until this stage, the eyes have to be closed. It's a very important point. They can't be open. Because if you open them too early, if you open the eyes too early in the process, and opening of the eyes means I want to see the results of everything I've done. Looking for results is to ensure that you'll never get to them. If what you're counting is your result, is your success, if you're taking stock of what you've achieved, then that's a surefire method of never coming and reaching your goal. To reach your goal, you have to keep your eyes closed until the right moment. It's like a person who is sitting in a car and driving, somebody else is driving, and they keep asking, so are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? And he keeps looking at the map, are we there yet? Or today on the Waze, are we there yet? Are we there yet? That is a surefire method to never make it. Especially if you're the driver and you keep asking that question and look at your map. You probably, God forbid, have an accident. The Gemara says this in a very interesting way. It says that one of the things that causes a person heartache and is actually a way to ensure that your prayers are not received it's called iyun tefillah. Literally that means eyeing the prayer. Eyeing like as in an eye. E-Y-I-N-G. E-Y-E-I-N-G. E-Y-E-I-N-G. Eyeing the prayer. Rashi explains that this means that a person prays and every few minutes he looks to see whether his prayer has been answered. He wants to see the result. He says, no, it doesn't work that way. You have to keep your eyes closed. You have to focus on what you want in your mind's eye. You have to keep the vision of faith alive inside you and not act prematurely to try to find it in reality. The moment you're looking for the vision of faith in reality, and you decide to open your eyes to see if you've attained your goal, if it's not the right moment, you delay or even put off completely being able to achieve the goal. That's what it means. The eye is immediate. And we have to understand how this works, because the eye doesn't see process. The eye doesn't see a process. The eye sees the final product. The famous saying, you don't show half a job to a donkey, meaning to an idiot. Because when the eye sees something, it sees the final result. It can't see something else. The eye has a very difficult time seeing a process. We'll see how you get around that in a minute, but you have to keep this in mind, that when you look at something with your eyes, you're actually seeing all the layers of everything that has happened in the past as they're reflected right now at this moment. And so you take it, when you see it, as if this is the end result. It's very hard for the eye. That's why it's so difficult to be like an interior decorator, for instance. The eye has a really hard time seeing a process that needs to happen. And again, the eye, in all the Kabbalistic literature, is related to seeing the past, not seeing the future. To see the future, use your mind's eye. So the moment that you move from your vision of faith to actually looking at reality and asking, well, did I attain the goal that I wanted to attain? That's the moment that you move from pulling the future into our world, into your reality, to looking at the past instead of seeing the future. The reason the eye is seen this way is too much for me to go into right now. The simple understanding is that we say that the level of eyesight is called En Chacham Kebal Nisayon. There's nobody who is as wise as he who has experience. And experience is about the past. Wisdom is the eye. So the wise man, the eye, sees when it can understand the past. The eye is great, again, the external eye, the physical eye, physical eyesight. Its great ability is to document all that has happened until this moment. But to see the next stage, that's very difficult for the eye. How do we see the future? That's called En Chacham. That's called Ezeu Chacham Haro'eh et Hanolad. That's the inner eye. The inner wisdom is to see the future, the one who can see something being created. That the inner eye has an ability to see. So this transition from the vision to opening the eyes is really a shift from being connected to the future to being connected to the present, and seeing how the past has led up to the present moment. But really it's about seeing a picture of the present. That's why it's so important not to prematurely open the eyes. And again, in the sages, this is called that if a person davens for something, and when you daven for something, you're davening for something in the future, something that you want to happen. They say not to le'ayen batfilah, not to look at the prayer. And what really Rashi explains is that it's a person who's constantly opening his eyes to see, well, did it happen yet? So all this time, really, the eyes need to be closed in the proverbial sense, meaning the anticipation should not be broken by looking at the current state. And in fact, even when you've achieved your goal, there is a certain inclination in people not to open the eyes. They're afraid to open the eyes. If you think about it, that's sort of like the minhag that people have, which really is taken from Yiddishkeit, but we'll talk about the minhag in Yiddishkeit in a second. But when they make a birthday wish, so they close their eyes, close your eyes and make a wish. Where did that come from? That comes from Yiddishkeit, it comes from prayer. And then when you open your eyes, surprise, you're supposed to see it happen. And it's very interesting that the Goyim connected this with putting candles on a cake, or just candles in general. This all comes back to our minhag, which is on Erev Shabbos, when you light the candles. So you close your eyes, and then you open them. The candles just suddenly appeared. Halachically, the reason is because you can't make the blessing Le'adlik ner Shabbat Kodesh if you've already lit the candle. Because le'adlik, okay, le'adlik means that you're going to light the candle. So this came as a technical solution to a halachic problem. That you close your eyes and then you look at it. We do the same thing, by the way, with when we were called up to the Torah. We make the blessing, and then we cover up the sefer, and then when we're finished with the blessing, then we look at the sefer again. But again, this is as much as it's a technical solution, it's also a very spiritual technique, which is that you don't want to let the future dissipate before you're ready for it. So when you're making a wish, you're envisioning the future. And when you open your eyes, you're really expecting the future to now come into the present. And that's what's really happening with the stage 4, with sight. That's the power of eyesight. The power of eyesight is to say, if I have been successful in ushering the future in, when I open my eyes, I'll see it in reality. Yosef did something very similar. What did he say to Yaakov? He said, come down to Egypt and join me. What did Yaakov say about that? When Yaakov received the news, he said, Vayomer Yisrael Rav Od Yosef Bni Chai. Yaakov said, how great! My son Joseph is still alive. Eilcha ve'er'enu b'terem amut. Now it's time to open the eyes and to see Joseph. Because if you remember, 22 years earlier, Yaakov, in a sense, closed his eyes. He closed his eyes to many things that were happening around him. He wasn't blind, but he closed his eyes. Because he felt that Yosef, in his dreams, was telling him about the future. But for this future to happen, Yaakov had to find a way to usher it in, to envision it, to help Yosef figure out, how do you come to that place where you are like the sun, you're greater than the sun, that the sun and the moon is bowing down to you? How do you come to this place where you're going to be the ruler of all my children? In a sense, Yaakov had to ignore, he had to not look reality in the eye. And we know that he would not be comforted for 22 years. They couldn't comfort him. So a lot of explanations are given. They're all obviously correct. That the sages say that when a person knows that somebody is alive still, they can't mourn for them. And so they're not consoled. And that's why Yaakov would not be consoled for 22 years. He couldn't be comforted. But the inner reason really is that Yaakov can't open up his eyes until he can set his eyes on the reality that he had been envisioning. And it wasn't exactly that I'll see him before I die, because Yaakov lived in Egypt for quite some time. How many years did he live in Egypt? 17 years. So it wasn't exactly he went to see Joseph and then he died. The statement, I'll see Joseph before I die, means that now has come the time for me to open my eyes and see the future I was envisioning having taken shape in front of me. And in a certain sense, Yosef being away from all of them was also part of that not looking at the future, or sorry, more like not looking at the situation that Joseph is in order to let the future come into the present. So when it comes to any kind of planning, any kind of goal that we're trying to reach in our lives, the thing that hurts the most is taking stock of the achievements. Now, it's true that from time to time you have to see that there was progress. But look at the progress not as part of the whole, not saying, okay, I've achieved 50% of what I needed to achieve to accomplish my goal. Look at things as tasks in themselves that have been fully completed. Let's say that you have 1,000 tasks to perform before reaching your goal. So you don't say, okay, I have 1,000 tasks, I've completed 450, so I've finished 45% of my goal. Rather you say, I finished this task 100%, and this task 100%, and this one 100%. 450 altogether. How many till the end, till the final end? I don't know. I don't know. That's called that even Hashem doesn't show the kates, he doesn't show the end to anybody before it's ready. Hashem does the same thing. He won't reveal to anybody when the redemption will happen. Because to reveal it is actually to ensure that it doesn't happen then. The moment that somebody sees it, and it's not everybody seeing it together, Vera'u kol basar yachdav, all flesh will see together, ki pi Hashem diber, that the voice of God is spoken, that the mouth of God is spoken. Until that moment, showing it even to one person will ruin the possibility of the future coming into the present. Let's see this here. The eye of Jacob, confident and independent. What does this mean? That the eye is connected to confidence just as much as the active and passive confidence. The role of the eye is a little bit different. The role of the eye is to sign the process, to finish it. And as we have seen, betach, the verse in Hebrew is betach badad ein Yaakov. The eye of Jacob is confident and independent. So confident and independence, we've been talking a lot about this. And betach, we said, is an acronym for blessing, good, and life. All the good things that you want. And absolute confidence in the good depends on the annihilation of Amalek, the root of doubt. Here, confidence is not just the power to do, because here we're talking about eradicating the doubt that we have succeeded. It's no longer about confidence as a driver, as a motivator of our actions. Rather, it's confidence as a remedy against doubt. You can be doubtful and you can be confident. So once confidence has taken one through the initial 3 stages, building them properly, and that was the active confidence, confidence as a motivator, it is left for the eyes, for one's physical power of sight, to sanctify reality. As in the command, this you shall see, kazeh re'eh, and sanctify, v'kadesh, that we discussed above in relation to seeing the new moon. Making it holy for God. Holy both with an H and holy with a WH. entirely for God. That's the role of the eyes. So it's no longer motivating more action. Rather, it's signing and sealing reality as being entirely divine. I've revealed the blessing, the goodness, and life that I set out to do in the beginning. So let's see some of these powers that the eye has to better understand when is the right moment to do this. Again, we're moving from an inner picture, the vision of faith in the mind's eye, to seeing it incarnate in reality, to seeing it manifest in reality. But seeing it manifest is not to do more, it's to be able to say, like the Rebbe used to say, Hinei, Hinei Mashiach ba. Behold, behold, which is look, look, Mashiach has come. To open the eyes. The Rebbe felt that Mashiach had already come, in the sense that all that's missing, meaning all the motivators have done their job. We've done all that needs to be done. We're only missing one thing, which is the eyesight, the ability to look at reality and say, this reality is sanctified already. This reality is already divine. It's already revealed its true blessing, goodness, and life. That's how the Rebbe described it. That we need only to open our eyes. That's how we described it. Now, you hear to open the eyes, and people don't understand. What are you talking about? I open my eyes every morning. Baruch Hashem. I say a bracha. Pokeach ivrim. So what do you mean by opening the eyes? You have to understand. What does he want from me? He says, the final act is not another act. It's not another action. The final act that you need to do is validate reality. You have to sanctify reality with your eyes. And the eyes have a tremendous power in this capacity. They're still driven by confidence. The confidence is that this is really a sanctified reality. People don't act the way they should because they don't believe that they can act that way, that it's possible. They have doubts. They say, we still live in a reality that has not finished its rectification. The good thoughts that Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and Moshe Rabbeinu, and all the tzaddikim of all the generations had about this time have not yet been fulfilled. That's what we think. That's our doubt. We don't believe, we don't have confidence, not the belief is a long time ago. We don't have the confidence anymore yet to be able to say this reality wants and demands messianic life. We're too full of doubt. When Mashiach comes, what will you do? You can ask somebody, ask yourself. When I reach my goal, what would I do? What would I do with my time? How would I use the money that I have? How would I use my possessions? What would I do with myself? If you really understand what the Rebbe said, that we're there already, you can start acting that way now. There's nothing hindering you, he says. You just have to open your eyes. And to open the eyes, again, is to remove the doubt that somehow we're not there yet. Imagine, let's take a very mundane example. Somebody's building a building, and they listen to all this advice, and they say, I'm not going to make the mistake of charting how much of the project is finished every day. Rather, I'm going to look at what we call signposts or stages that need to happen. And I'm going to look at each stage separately. And I'm going to say, I finished 100% of stage 1, of stage 2, phase 5, phase 6, whatever it is. So imagine that somebody wanted to build a 10-story building, and they finished all the floors. And they finished the finish. They did everything. But they never opened their eyes to actually say, now's the time to live in the building. What did I build it for? I didn't build it so that I would just remain on the outside without a building. The whole reason for building it was so that I could live in it, or that other people could live in it. So imagine that something is ready and there's doubts. Well, I'm not sure that this is exactly the way I wanted it. Or, I'm not sure it's sturdy enough. I'm not sure that it'll actually sell, the apartments will sell, I don't know. That doubt is what prevents you in the end from enjoying and using the thing that you built so hard, that you spent so many years building. The same thing happens with the redemption. You actually have to want to live in it to take advantage of it. You're right. All 2,000 or 3,000 or 5,000, however many years you think it's been in the making. All those years, it would have been a bad idea to ask, are we there yet? Because that would weaken you. You wouldn't have the strength to endure what needed to be endured. So, for that amount of time, for those years of the exile, the best strategy was, don't talk about Mashiach. Then, some 50, 60, 70 years ago, we get this man who is admittedly the smartest guy and the greatest tzaddik that's been around for a long, long time. And he comes and he says, look, I'm looking at the world, I'm telling you we're done. There was a time he said there's one more small action that needs to happen, there's one more small action. But at some point he stopped saying that. And he said, it's here. And people said to him, but we don't see it. We don't know what you're talking about. The building's not finished. You can't live in it. He says, I see it. It's finished. Open your eyes. Again, these are not physical eyes. They're proverbial eyes. And the proverbial eyes have to see things with confidence. And they have to overcome the feeling of doubt that we're not there yet. That message was the final message that he gave. He said, it's all here. I'm looking at it. It's in front of my eyes. So somebody can come and say, you're right, he's the smartest guy, but he's not a prophet. But he's not claiming to be a prophet. Yeah, maybe he is, but he's not saying it on the basis of prophecy. He's saying it on the basis of experience. He sees something obviously that I don't see. The question is, can I overcome my doubts to live in this reality? Another example of something like this. There's all kinds of mind tricks that you can play. One of them is that you have a bridge made out of clear perspex, which is like a type of very strong plastic, but it's transparent. And there are bridges like this built in different places in the world where you can go off a cliff and basically stand in midair over, a very deep fall. Or you know what? I'm sure the people who got on the first planes had the same feeling. I'm not going up in that tin can. What am I, nuts? What's going to keep it up? So it's very easy to open their eyes because, well, there's been so many people on these tin cans and they don't fall down for no reason. Sometimes they do, but it's very uncommon. What does a person need in order to get on this plane? What does a person need to go over this transparent bridge? What they need is confidence. What they need is to overcome their doubts. But somebody who sees, who knows, who was involved in the building perhaps, who's flown this thing, who knows something about it, tells you, look, it's safe. You can all you need to do is open your eyes and you'll see that this works. It's already working. It's not something in the making. It's really here. Now I don't know. I'm not going to be the one who's going to tell you now that somehow we can make the process go backwards. I don't know. Maybe we can. Maybe there was an opening for a few years where everything was ready, everything was perfectly there, and we've ruined it a little bit since then because we didn't use it. Sort of like a plane that nobody's been servicing, or a bridge like this that nobody's been cleaning. So it might be that we've lost something, but I don't think so. I don't think the world is inherently different than it was in 1991 or in 1990. So opening the eyes is a tremendous act of confidence that we've arrived, that our ship has sailed in. It's in the port now. Get on it and take the goods off. But we're afraid of doing it because we have doubts. So this ties in a little bit to, if you read Rav Ginsburg's talk on the first Slichos night this year, that Tafshin Pei Aleph 781 is equal to Yisrael Amalek. It's equal to Israel Amalek. And he explained it that this is the year that Hashem opens our eyes. Meaning that he helps us, Yisrael, overcome the doubts that we have about reality really having achieved what it needs to achieve. So we'll leave it with this for this class. And God willing, next week Monday is Yom Kippur again. And I hope that on Wednesday I'll be able to teach. And if not, then we'll have a class on Monday of Sukkos. And in the meantime, Gmar Chatzima Tova to everybody. Have a very easy fast. And Hashem should give us the confidence to open our eyes to see that we're already there. That we can use the world now as a geuladik world, as a world that's been redeemed. And it may seem like we're even further away, but that's not true. In fact, it could be that the only solution to the problems that we have now is to see the world as one that's already been redeemed. It may be that that's the only solution, and to choose a leader who sees it that way. Okay, so Chag Sameach to everybody. Gmar Chatima Tova. It should be a year of blessings and a year of opening the eyes.